Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 226 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we're discussing CF Montreal's terribly lopsided loss against Toronto FC, and our instant reaction to Rose's FC match, the Laws versus Calgary Wild FC. As you can see, I'm joined tonight by Elias. How are you doing, Elias? Can you just are you crying because of my mistake?
Thank God I got to watch both Barcelona teams lift the trophy today
Who
because this might be one of the worst weekends of sports
in
I've
Montreal?
seen. I've seen in a long time, man. Roses lose. CF Montreal. I don't call CF Montreal a loss. Whatever the hell that was. The Rocket lose. The Victoire are eliminated from the play. Like there's just no light in my life right now. Terrible.
Yeah, it's Elias. I mean, look,
Except
Elias. Let's
you're
just
the
let's
most in
just
my life.
say how it is. Okay, let's just say how it is. We both and good evening, Eric. It's nice to see you join us tonight. And sorry about that. LP is Habs fan also tells us, evening guys. I'm hoping my positive outlook on the team really shines through and is infectious. We definitely hope you're bringing some
Don't
positivity
patronize me.
tonight. And Roberto tells, well, I wasn't coming in tonight, but then I thought the show could use a dose of optimistic Robbie. Yes, please. I'm laughing to not cry, right? So yes, and Tate also is telling us at least Vermont Green FC is winning tonight. Let's go Vermont! Sure. And
I'll take what I
so
can get at this point. Shit.
David,
Shout
thank
out
you
the
so
green.
much. Mental health is important. This is funny. Anyways, I'm laughing to not cry. But I was telling you, Elias, as I was saying earlier, yeah, I mean, we saw each other over the weekend at the game, and I think we both looked at each other after the Toronto game, and we said, what are we going to talk about? What is there to talk about?" This is, I mean, I'm sorry, and guys, just to be very transparent with you guys, usually we know that we break it down, position by position and all that after every game, and we talk about who played one. All, but I think there's bigger issues to talk about because if we start breaking it down position by position, Elias, it's
Oh,
gonna be
my
copy
hands gonna go
paste,
back in my hands, man.
copy paste for
Yeah,
position. So it's
it was terrible all around. There,
yeah.
spoiler alert. Everyone was shit.
Show over, but no, but it's really, and yeah, Eric has a little bit of positive for us. He says the positive, we
Look at
scored a
that.
goal, and Joel won't be too tired for Tuesday. That is very
Yeah,
positive.
he got. Yeah, that's not the kind of squad rotation we were talking about, Marco.
No, no, no.
But okay, sure, we'll take
But
it.
before we're so excited to start talking about the game, but just before we get started, guys, before we get into the show, just a quick reminder to click on the subscribe button wherever you're listening, whichever platform you're using to listen to us, be it YouTube, X, wherever it is. Helps our show, helps us, and make sure to also follow Elias and I on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, wherever it is that you guys want to go. We have daily updates. We are constantly we cover this team day on the daily and give our opinions, and it helps out the show. If you like what you hear, what you see, our positivity, our negativity, our take, or whatever, definitely give us a follow on all platforms, and we'll be there, and it helps us out. So, anyways, let's get right into it.
Do we have to?
Before we get into the actual game, as you know,
Okay.
we discuss a few random topics of the week, and we're not going to delve too much into it. I think the big one this week, Elias, that I could kind of around the MLS kind of took us aback was the Greg Vanny contract renewal with the LA Galaxy. They're a
Mhm.
last place team, and they just finished going through some bad losses. We talked about it on Wednesday, right, Elias? After I think they were winning 2-0, and then they lost 3-2 finally. And you're just thinking it only makes sense to fire Greg Vanny. I mean, he's a great coach. I think anybody will tell you that. But then he gets renewed. I think even the LA Galaxies were fans were what is happening? Um, yeah, it sounds like it sounded like a very MLS kind of thing to happen. I've never seen that happen. But I will say one thing, Elias. Okay, when I spoke to Olivier Renard, he had told me that back in the Wilfred Nancy days, there was a period in I believe it was 2022. Yes, 2022 before the excellent season that um they they were going through a rough stretch, CF Montreal, at the beginning of the year, and everybody was saying Wilfred Nancy needs to go because he's a new coach, he doesn't know much and all that. But the office had seen was obviously at practice, present at practice every day.
Mhm.
They saw that there was something getting built there that was worth, giving him an extension, giving him a second chance, not giving up on that project. Do you think that's what happened at LA Galaxy? Is this something maybe that nobody sees on the field, but they're seeing in practice? Like, what kind of 1 plus 1, I guess, equals 2? Would you say here, for this news is essentially?
Yeah, I mean, look, LB House fan kind of puts it well. Their top player, Ricky Puig, towards ACL, right? He's out for the year. Sell a lot of players, and they did not replace them. But they have an owner that's willing to spend. They'll be fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that justifies um, rewarding Greg Vanney with a 3-year contract extension. I understand that, you know, you want to keep him around because of all these reasons. Sure. I mean, those same reasons got, well, maybe not those exact same reasons, but a similar amount of good reasons got Nahago fired after 5 games. So I think that, you know, I personally don't see the logic in, again, because it's also about optics. When you could have this, you know, you could have this contract renewal in your back pocket and announce it whenever you want. You choose now when you're in the midst of your the worst start to an MLS season ever. The optics are weird, right? You could have all the reasons you want and you could explain them. At the end of the day, you're rewarding the coach that has you sitting with 4 points at the bottom of the league after 13 games with a contract extension. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that, there's them not wanting to fire Greg Vanney and them giving him a 3-year contract extension do not have to be at the same time. That's just the timing of this is incredibly weird to me. So,
I
you're
mean,
not going to instill confidence in the
hey,
fan base of the group. Look, they have eyes. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense to me. But you know what? We got bigger fish to fry over here.
yeah, but I mean, we just like to talk about random topics around the league. We're laughing not to cry, guys. That should be the name of the pod
Exactly.
today. Should that be okay?
The laughing not to cry
We're
episode.
laughing not to cry.
That
But
that's like 80% of the episodes this year, dude. We're gonna get redundant.
I'm depressed. But what I was trying to say is that
Yeah.
it sometimes doesn't really make sense. But what's gonna happen, Elias, if he ends up, I don't know, winning a trophy miraculously somehow this season, some way, or even making the playoffs. I don't know. Crazy stuff can happen. Everybody's gonna say, "Man, this admin is genius," right? So yeah, so it's just kind of a weird one, but it's a wait and see, and we'll see if they made a terrible mistake or they actually did well. Guys, don't hesitate to go ahead and post your comments on we're here live, so we can obviously answer your comments, interact with us, and yeah, vent. Put what your thoughts are in your head as we're talking here, right? So let's get into it. Let's get into the sixth CF Montreal loss, 6-1 to Toronto FC yesterday. Um, what I wanted to start out with, Elias, is I can't. There were 2 games this week, right? And we obviously didn't get to talk about the one on Wednesday night, against Columbus Crew, which they tied, and then they lost 6-1 yesterday. Um, uh, there was a big difference in the feeling beyond the game, beyond the X's and O's of that
Mhm.
feeling after the game. At least the way, Elias, you and I, when we were talking about it, it felt like, man, yeah, it was a tie, but this is the best team in the league. Undeniably. Well, no, they're okay. Arguably, yes, there are the teams, but they are one of the best. And Wilfred Nancy has that team very well, playing very well. And they managed to tie and play next to what to me meant was almost a perfect game for CF Montreal as far as the season has gone. Um, but then yesterday, we both, like, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I said we were speechless. We didn't know what to say. It was just terrible. So what were some of your takeaways from that Columbus Crew game, quickly, like, if you were to summarize it, and then
Yeah.
we'll.
That was probably the best coach game Marco Donadel has delivered all season. Um, He had the team trained to within an inch of their lives. They were well rehearsed. They were well organized. The that high line was perfectly suited for what Columbus brought. Everything about, and yeah, it was a fairly rotated squad, right? You have a couple key members of the crew either on the bench or didn't even play at all. But the same could be said for Montreal. So I think that honestly, as far as just Marco Donadel organizing and preparing his group, that was his best work this season by far. And honestly, Columbus, especially in the first half, Columbus had no answer. And you know, through sheer quantity of possession, yeah, they got some shots on target, but it was mostly at target. It was mostly at Jonathan Siwa. It was mostly harmless. And the real only chance they got was when Joel Waterman tried the scorpion kick and gave them a free shot on goal that Nathan Saliba blocked. And then David Bugai mispassed it back to Jonathan Siwa and gave Jason Russell Rowe a free open net because Jonathan Siwa got unlucky when he came out. You could argue he could have come out a bit stronger and hit the ball a bit harder. Maybe their contact, whatever. That's all nonsense, right? That's all hyperbole. It was bad luck. So honestly, that was yeah, that was 3 points that they should have had that they ended up with one. That's unfortunate, but when you compare it to what followed, I
No.
people who have listened to this podcast know that I'm very rarely someone who does not have words for a situation. I talk a lot. I talk a lot of shit. I it's been exactly 24 hours from since I left the stadium because I worked after the game. Since I left the stadium, I still don't have the words to put together an art any kind of coherent thought about this game. I'm simply like there's just like clown music going in my head, and that's it. I genuinely I do believe that this is one of those like this is worse than the 5-1 by far. The title of the pod is see if Montreal makes history because in MLS this has never happened at Stade Saputo, a 6-1. The miracle in Montreal happened, but that was a Canadian championship. That was 2009. That was a million years ago, 16 years ago. But what happened on last afternoon rather, is the most incomprehensible display of football I've ever seen from this club. That includes the 7-2 against Sporting KC. That includes everything. Yeah, I'm hoping I wake up and it's just a bad nightmare. Welcome to what about this entire season makes you think that this isn't a fucking nightmare? No, this is
I mean, look, Elias, I think it wasn't just you and me. I mean, the whole press box, we were all. And again, if you go to X, you go to Facebook, you go to Blue Sky, everywhere you go, people are just trashing the team, and understandably so. I mean, but I think again, not just you, Elias, or me. We love to talk about this team. We love talking when it's good or bad. We'll be the first to criticize them. But when we're left speechless because there is simply not a 1+1 = 2 situation from Wednesday to Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, it doesn't make any sense. And you know what, Elias? Marco Donadel said it in the press conference because even in the press conference, all of us we were just like, well, "What are we going to ask? What are we going to get?" Well, there's you feel like you're walking on eggshells because it's just such a bad loss again in a derby. And Marco Donadel said something interesting, Elias, that I really he really like it keeps you said you had like that clown music circus music in your head. I had that quote in my head where he said, I've only been here, I think he said 8 weeks, and we haven't been able to practice a situation with 10 men. So now we know that we had to practice 10 men. And Elias, that what like, so you're saying that the moment this team went down 10 men, they had nothing. Elias, the team that showed was after that red card was the same kind of defensive back line that I saw in the early days of Laurent Courtois, where the defense had no idea what they were doing. They had the 3-man back line and they always seem to be out of place, always seem that's exactly what it seemed. And then Marco Donadel also said he made the wrong substitution, which is going to lead me to my next topic, right? Because he said he thinks he made a mistake with the substitutions. He said, "I'll be honest." He said, I was thinking about the future games when it came to making the substitutions, even if the situation called for some substitutions after the red card." And that drove me crazy because that's my next question for you, Elias. And it's the question that keeps going over my head. Did Marco Donadel overlook Toronto FC? Did he just say, you know what, do what we can, but then the red card happened, and now we can't do what we can? What do you think?
I don't think he overlooked TFC. I think because again, he's played for Montreal. He's aware of what this game means. He's aware of what's at stake, even if it is 14th versus 15th. He's totally in. He's aware of the reality of this rivalry. Um, I think it's just the pitfall of new manager, you call it young manager with something to prove, is you don't rotate your squad. Right? He did not rotate anything against Columbus. He did not rotate. He barely rotated anything against NYCFC. You can't be surprised when you turn up and again, you can hide behind the caveat of 10 men, but how many times in the history of soccer has a team with 10 men, I'm not saying win, I'm not even saying draw, just not conceded 6 goals or 5 goals? Right? There's a certain amount of when your players are down to 10 men and have also played 100, 120, 150 minutes over the last 6 days, yeah, no shit, they get run over. So I think that this is also a brutal learning experience for him because, again, this is not someone who's in his first year of coaching. This is someone who should know. It's not someone who's in his first year of professional soccer. He should know better. He should know that what goes into a game like this. You should know that the second you go down to 10 men, you have to make your subs as soon as possible, especially when it's a center back, especially when it's your most important center back that gets sent off.
A captain in the team.
It's a captain of the team. It's a leader. It's your general. It's whatever word you want to call it. And again, Luca Petrasso, who by the end was starting to figure out the whole concept of a left-sided center back in a back three, was still dubious at best. He wasn't actively a liability anymore. It's a nice thing I could say about Luca Petrasso at left center back. But now you throw him into a back four with Tom Pierce next to him, it's borderline suicidal.
Yeah.
It's borderline suicidal.
And
And that's
TFC
exactly
caught
what
on
happened.
to that. TFC caught
That's
on to
exactly
that.
what happened. Both
fast.
goals happened from his side. Both goals happened from Tom Pierce and Luca Petrasso's side because, again, that's not what they're supposed to be doing. So obviously they were completely caught off guard. And Toronto FC, they smelt chum in the water. The Sharks smelt chum in the water, and they made them pay. So the fact that in 8 minutes of indecision, or I don't know, were you trying to kill time to give them a chance to warm up? Were you trying to kill time just to figure out who you wanted to go on the field? At the end of the day, those 8 minutes cost you the game. So beyond that, the rest of the game is moot at this point because you go into halftime 3-0, and I don't know what was said in the locker room at half. Didn't get the chance to ask Donadell about that, but they came out and they were a little bit better, I guess. I mean, Federico Bernardeschi hits a crazy left-footed shot. I mean, he's got one of the best left feet in MLS. You can't really plan for that, and you can have 13 men on the field, and that'll happen. Shit happens. But the response after Veroni scored goes, "We got a goal. We can stop now. It's okay. You guys can do whatever the hell you want." Like, I genuinely don't understand any kind of the reaction of any players. People are saying that Veroni played well. He wasn't actively horrifying. Doesn't mean he played well. Nobody played well. I'm not gonna say anybody had a good game. So, yeah.
Well, Joel Waterman won the match of the game. So, but let's who's the man of the match? The Air Transat man of the match was given to Joel Waterman as a bad joke. But the point being is, one of the things is, as you said, Elias, I don't know if he overlooked the game. I just feel like he got stuck in his head too much about planning and the fact that there's so many games. I mean, he said it himself, Elias. He said it in previous press conference. He's like, I want my players to be more about feeling or reading the situation. I want them to not necessarily to just be stuck on something, but really understand the situation. And it just felt like Donadel really didn't capture how quickly, maybe like how quickly
He didn't
this
do
change
that.
team.
He wants his team to do that, but he didn't do that. He didn't read the
Yeah,
situation.
he didn't read the situation, and he didn't realize it until I think it was 3-0 that he was like, you know what, Kaden Clark, yeah, I get up. Down 3-0, and at that point, Elias, I think you and I, we both
The
saw
game
it.
was done. The game was done.
Fans started leaving at 3-0. The fans started leaving. They're like, they didn't even
Yeah,
wait till halftime. They said, "Nah, we're out." And it's tough to take. Even as some fans left, we stayed obviously throughout the whole game. It's tough to take because um, the stadium wasn't full, which also was something that stood out to me. The stadium was not full, but the fans that were there were vocal, and the tifo, Elias, whew,
this is
tifo
very
at the
nice.
beginning.
The pre-match was very nice. It was very well done.
Huge shout out to the supporters group for that. It was very done. They were very vocal. But Elias, I mean, everybody at some point says, you know what, this I can't do this as much as I love this team, right? It's tough. It's tough. So it definitely was one of those things that we you could feel it around the stadium, the deception, the at some point, Elias towards the end of the game, Sebastian Breza saved a goal, saved a shot, not even a goal, just a shot, and the stadium just kind of roared.
Yeah, he got a Bronx cheer. I think that's kind of shitty. I
Yeah,
don't think he
and
deserved that.
I was
I
like,
mean, were there some goals he could have done better on? Maybe, but that's kind of mean, man. Like that he was hung out to dry on for like 4 of the 5 goals, and it kind of brings us to the question that we had um
yeah,
before the show from Tate, saying if you look at the stats, the team played most of the game down a man, and the expected goals were only 2.3 to 1.5 for TFC. Was it a mistake not to start Siwa? No, it was not a mistake to start Siwa because ultimately Jonathan Siwa was not going to make a difference in this game. You put Jonathan Siwa in, and it's you lose 4-1. Mazel tov. Like it doesn't mean anything. You still got your ass kicked. So I don't think it would have changed anything. I feel bad for Reza because again, there's only so many as a backup goalie. There's only so many moments you can have to make your value known and to make your worth known to the coach and to the fans and to everybody. And when you are shackled immediately with the prospect of 70 minutes down a man, it's tough to psychologically to get yourself going, especially because again, on the Tyrese Spicer goal, could he have done better? Maybe. It was 1-on-1. You just make yourself big and you hope for the best at that point. But for the rest of the game, what was he to do? What would Jonathan Sewa have gotten out of this game that Breza didn't?
his confidence
Nothing.
would have gotten down. His confidence would have just gone down. And right now he's going so well that this game, whoever played it, including Dante Seeley, who we've seen progress over time, even the Columbus crew, I really liked this game with the Columbus crew. Um, it
Everyone was
just
terrible. Sealy was horrible, but
it was
everyone
he
was
was
terrible.
terrible, but it's just that
Yeah.
Seeley can't do it alone, and they were all trying to play hero ball. But at some point, they went. I mean, CF Montreal just went with a fight back and just try to defend, and they still couldn't do it. So that's look. I don't think that. And I told this to Elias. I was like, I don't think Toronto FC is a good team, and I'm not saying that because they're Toronto FC. I'm just saying based on what I saw them play. I don't think they're a team that should be able to beat CF Montreal on a 6-1 on any given Saturday. I just don't think that. Yes, do they have a Bernadeschi that is when he's good, he is lights out? Yeah, 100%. He's an elite player, and you saw that yesterday. But CF Montreal shot themselves in the foot beyond the red card. And that's why we talked about Marco Donadel, right? About Marco Donadel maybe being unprepared or not reacting well to certain situations. They shot themselves in the foot. And, you can quickly point fingers, but the reality of it is that the whole team failed yesterday. And it just Toronto FC was having a feast because they've been on that other end before, Elias. We've seen it where Toronto's the one that's going down 5-1, 6-1 because they're having a horrendous game. So it's just which kind of brings me to my next topic, Elias, is what's next? What's next for this team? Because look, as Eric said, right? Can't explain why, but I love this team, and I'll still be there to cheer and encourage them. It's hard sometimes, most of the time, but they'll be hearing my and our frustration, of course. Fair enough. But what's next? Well, what's next for this team? What can they do from here? It's so hard to talk about that today because we're obviously still, as you said, speechless and hungover of the horrible loss yesterday. But what's next?
If you're a player on this team, your only job today and even tomorrow is to just forget, man. It's to just kind of remove any kind of negative feelings or frustration or anything like that built up over the course of Sunday or Saturday, sorry, and just forget, because there's no way any carrying this kind of energy into the Forge game is going to do any good. It's exactly what Robbie says, right? Forget and move on.
Yeah,
So that's pretty much it. What's next? Look, except for that kind of that not kind of that defensive breakdown where they got caught on a counter, Patrick's right. I mean, if you want to hashtag power of positivity or whatever the hashtag was at the beginning of the show, the first 50 minutes were good. Yeah, the first 50 minutes were excellent.
yeah.
Right? Toronto couldn't get a word in edgewise, and yeah, they got one goal against the run of play. It's gonna happen, right? If you play that high up the field, you're gonna get countered. But what I saw in the first 15 minutes were very promising, and it showed a continuation. Um, but again, Natal Saliba was on top of his shit. Dante Seeley was doing okay. Jalen Neal and Joel Waterman looked like they were really getting along together. All the stuff, Luca Petrasso, again, why is he the most consistent player on this team that's not named George Campbell? It's kind of frustrating, but it's also kind of nice to see. But like in those first 15 minutes were great, but I don't care about 15 minutes of soccer, because how many times this season have we been told, yeah, but that was good? And again, like this result, I'm not saying to the players only, the fans, the media, every single person involved with following or covering this team has to forget about Saturday. You have to put it out of your brain. You could talk about it maybe tomorrow, maybe. But by the time Tuesday morning rolls around, start thinking about Forge, start thinking about the Canadian Championship, start thinking about the fact that on June 1st, if the Vancouver Whitecaps beat Cruz Azul, all you have to do is make the finals of the Canadian Championship. And you've booked Champions League football for next year. You could finish with one win the rest of the season and you're playing the Champions League next year. Right? So there's still stuff to play for, there's still stuff to be motivated about, and Forge is a very real thing. So honestly, everybody, all of us, after this pod, if you listen to it on Monday, maybe after Monday, it never happened, right? TFC will never let you forget that it happened. But if you're talking to anybody but them, Saturday was a blackout day.
Robbie already forgot about it.
I wish
He's
I could.
already
I
on.
wish
He's
I
like,
could
what
forget that.
much? It's just, Elias. It's easy for us to say, Like I think we all need this platform to talk because I after the game, Elias, I spoke to you. I spoke to a few of the other people that covered the team, and I think we all looked at each other with blank faces, like, "What's your take?" And they were like, "I have none."
It was the initial shock,
It-
but
it- but
Andy, you're a Bayern fan, man. You don't understand struggle. Fuck out of here.
we struggle 1 week into 18. But
Yeah,
look,
exactly. You lost one league title. Oh no, fuck out of here.
I can't forget. But it's one of those things that you have to move on. You know why? Also,
Mm.
Elias, you're right in that you have to move on. Is that it's just odd. It's not the team we've seen go take those steps that Marco Dundao has spoke about. It was like it's almost like you're going up a stairs, Elias, and all of a sudden you just have a misstep where you just fall. And you just fall. You're like, okay, well, you got to get back up and continue those steps, right? And if it means that you're gonna add on 1 hour to practice where you just practice 10 men instead of 11, then so be it. But it was such an oddity, and and I think the Nadal said it well. He's like, these kind of games happen. He said in the post-game conference, he's like, these kind of games can happen, but it happened in a very horrible game, which was a derby.
Yeah,
So he, it's expected. It can happen. I mean, it happened last year in Seattle when CF Montreal lost 5-0. against, and also a game that they couldn't forget last year was the game that they lost last year against well, they also lost against Toronto FC at Toronto 5-0, no, 5-1. And yeah, so there were those kind of games that were like we were becoming a little too frequent during that period. But here in this, especially after the Crew game, Elias, it didn't feel right. But let's talk about a little more like beyond the game, Elias. Let's talk about in like a bigger picture. Okay, did yesterday's game feel like? Would you say it's a recruitment failure by CF Montreal? Like, can are you ready to call the offseason a complete failure today with the players that are on the field?
100%, 100%. Because when you think about the people that you had to replace, there's one name that you had to replace. It was Joseph Martinez. On the defensive side of the ball, yes, Raheem Edwards had to be replaced. Um, in hindsight, Jaquil Marshall didn't pan out, and David Bugai stepped in seamlessly. Also, we haven't talked about David Bugai, but David Bugai has been excellent the last couple weeks. Um,
Oh yeah,
he's kind of flown under the radar because he hasn't really stuck out or anything, or not as much as Luca Petrasso because he's not scoring or assisting. But shout out David Bugai. You are doing great work, and yeah, he bid his time. He waited on the bench until he got the chance to prove himself, and he's not going to let go of that right back spot anytime soon. But when it comes to recruitment, you brought in Prince Owusu, you brought in Giacomo Vrioni, you brought in Jalen Neal. Jalen Neal and Vrioni both showed up unfit for the beginning of the season. So right there, you're leveraging two of the three biggest signings you make. If you include Hennady Sinchuk, you include three of the four biggest signings you made, and you kind of just started the season without them. So you effectively did not replace anybody. You replaced Joseph Martinez with Prince Owusu, and that's it. That's not a step back. That's like a leap back, right?
yeah.
Prince Owusu,
Well said.
for all the good that we've talked about on this show and everywhere, he is a good player in hold up, in development, but he cannot be a lone striker. So what do? You go out and you start the season with Prince Owusu, an out of shape Sunusi Ibrahim, an injured Giacomo Vrioni, and an injury prone Jonathan Nivilsen. Those are your four strikers. You knowing full well that Prince Owusu cannot be the lone striker, this is what you surround him with. You cannot be surprised. So yeah, this is ultimately a failure in recruitment. The game against Toronto, we're forgetting about the game against Toronto. That game
I
was
think
not a
it's the
failure.
exclamation mark, Elias, to that. That's why I ask
But
and
that's
kind
the
of link
thing,
it.
right?
You know,
When you get again, I put the result more on Donadell than the players because he did not adjust immediately, right? I don't care if you train 10 versus 11 or not. When you're a coach and your team goes down, especially your center back, you react immediately. You don't wait 5 minutes because in 5 minutes it can all fall apart, and it did. Spoiler alert. But if we're talking about now broad strokes, if we're talking about the big picture, this season has been a failure in addressing your needs, right? Every single year at the end of the season, you make a big board of stuff we have, stuff we're losing, stuff we need to replace. And the biggest name, the only real name on that list of stuff to replace was Joseph Martinez, right? You tried to make it work. It didn't end up happening. He did not stick around. Okay, you move on. You have all this salary cap room. You have all these goals you have to replace. You know full well Giacomo Vrioni is coming in injured, right? This is not news. He did not get injured on the flight to Montreal. Jalen Neal's a bit more unfortunate. He got injured at training camp with the national team. That kind of caught you off guard. Fine. But Giacomo Vrioni, you bought him injured. You knew fully well that he was coming into the team and was not going to start the season. You were thinking, oh, maybe a week turns out, or 2 weeks turns out to be 2 months, whatever. You still do nothing, right? This is a failure in looking at Prince Owusu saying he's going to be our lone striker. That is ultimately on the front office staff and the sporting direction of the club saying, that's good enough. No, it's not. It's really not. Could they anticipate a Caden Clark taking such a big step backwards? No. But again, when Caden Clark does not have Joseph freaking Martinez to play off of, you can't expect him to be as effective. You look at
Not
all
as
the
effective. He's useless
you look at
without
all you
Joseph
look at
Martinez.
all the good moments of Caden Clark at the end of last season. It all happened with Joseph Martinez, because Joseph Martinez is not just a finisher; he is someone who makes everyone around him better. Prince Owusu, I do get that sense from him, but not in a I'm going to help you score, as I'm going to help you build out from the back. He is a second striker, and that's his role. So yes, this is 100% a failure in recruit. This start to the season can be not solely put on the shoulders of the sporting direction, but they have serious questions to answer. And we're gonna have to wait until like July for their mid-season report, because again, that's usually when the sporting director or the president, or that's usually when Gabriel Gervais or Olivier Renard or whoever comes out to answer the media's questions, and they have a lot to answer for.
Yeah,
Like, this is
and
not
that,
going to be a 10-minute media availability. You are going to have, you're going to be answering a firing squad of journalists going, what the hell do you have to say for this?
I agree, and it's one of those things that also beyond responding to that, it's because we also had a lot of CF Montreal also got a lot of academy kids into the squad, right? We had Alex Guboglu and Owen Graham Roach that joined the team, and they also sent out some other players that from the academy that went on loan. We had Michael Adedokun that went to the USL on loan. So yeah, right. Forgot about these guys, but they are Biello is with the Halifax Wanderers. Where he's getting some playing time, and he is playing that anyways. I'm not going to get into that, but the point being is of the recruiting. Um, it just kind of makes you question a lot of things, because it feels like, yes, they've stated it very clear that this is a development club. This is why a few weeks ago on the pod I said, for your mental health, don't focus so much on the W, focus more on the development of the players, because that's what this club wants. Now, I'm going to say this because this is why I said that, Elias, you're right in saying that they messed up in the recruiting, because when you're a development club, that means that you have to develop the players in order to sell them, right? That's the motto of your club now. But I think what they've done, and as you said, there's the injury prone and all that. I think they've over how would I say it? Overestimated the development of these players. That it will go a lot quicker because of what happened with Wilfred Nancy during 2022, 2021, where he managed to develop players, the same exact players that we have now, because they were unused by their team or they were wrongly used by their team. But he managed to coach them, because Wilfred Nancy is an excellent coach. He's a player's coach. He understands them. He coaches them up well and brings the best out of them. And you see this now with the crew. He grabs literally any player and he can make them the best player that in that position. But not every coach is Wilfred Nancy. You can't just put a coach and assume they're going to do Wilfred, be able to do what Wilfred Nancy did. I mean, you even try to get somebody that worked with Wilfred Nancy and Laurent Courtois, and you didn't give them a fair chance with the kind of talent, players that they have today. So yeah, I agree that it is a failure, but it's just because they overestimate the development period of these players. That's my opinion on that, Elias, and that's why I think I agree with you that it is a failure, because you don't surround them with developed players. Joseph Martinez was not a developmental piece. Joseph Martinez was already a done player. Like K Kamara at the time, they were already done. They had already developed into their most. You knew what you were going to get with them. And this is more of what we need in this team. Players that know you know what to expect on any given Saturday, and they will be able to mentor your players, your young ones. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, because I think a lot of the fans of Elias are asking today, right now, is like, this club needs to answer what's going on. What's the next? Are we still a development club? Are we expected to win this year, or should we focus on something else?
Yeah, your
I mean,
focus is the Canadian Championship. Your focus is getting Champions League football next year, and your focus is trying to get some of that money in. But as far as, the next 2 months, all you're doing is damage control at this point, right? And if you really wanted to send a good message to the fans, or not a good message, if you want to send any kind of serious message to the fans, then you have to come out and talk to the press. You have to actually, you can't just, avoid it. You can't just hope it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. This is still one of the best covered teams in the league, right? Players come from other markets and they go, there's more journalists covering this than, in one game than a whole season elsewhere, right? There's still a massive interest in this club and there's still a massive feeling of belonging to this club. But if you want people to actually feel like they belong and they have a part and and what they're cheering for has any kind of respect for them, then you have to actively talk to them. You can't just go, they'll get it. No, they don't get it. All right? Nobody gets it. You have a plan. I'm assuming you have a plan. Maybe stop answering like a politician and be upfront with the people for once. Do you want to take accountability and say, hey, you know what? We got it wrong, but we're already working on the summer signings. What do you think Gigi going to say? Well, he can't say what he said at the beginning where we think that the squad is good enough to compete for a trophy and make the playoffs, because you cannot hide behind that. You fired your coach. You have your interim coach. You cannot argue that Marco Lundell is doing a bad job. And if anything, he's brought this team back from the brink. So what do I think he's going to say? He can't hide behind those answers anymore. It's physically impossible, because at that point, you're not only disrespecting the journalists that ask you the questions, you're disrespecting the fans too.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not saying
yesterday,
he's going to come out and slash his wrist in front and say mea culpa and it was all terrible and the team sucked. He's not going to, obviously not going to say that, but he has to take some form of accountability. And again, it's not just him, it's the entire sporting structure. And he talked about this at length. It's not just him. Yes, but he is the figurehead. The buck stops with him, and he is the public figurehead of the sporting structure. Corey Ray does not talk to the media. The Saputo brothers don't talk to the media. He talks to the media. So at some point, you have to answer the music, or else people are going to just get more and more disengaged. And not just fans, journalists too. Because what the hell am I going to do covering this? Why am I covering this if I can't talk to people and I have no answers? And people want me. People ask me questions and they want me to report on stuff, and I have nothing to report on. Then what am I doing here?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that lack of transparency and the more curiosity, especially after a 6-1 loss to in a derby, is definitely gonna lead to some weird moments like yesterday at the stadium when a random fan got off his seat, went straight to Gabriel Gervais. This was Jean-François that reported this, Jean-François Teotonio, that reported this, that a fan just got off his seat, went to Gabriel Gervais. I don't know. We don't know what was said between the two of them. And I don't think Gabriel Gervais responded, but he was just clearly agitated and just letting Gabriel Gervais have it. Because again, they have no answers, especially after 6-1. What are you gonna do? Okay, I'm just gonna go and I see the president there. I'm just gonna go talk to him and see if he can give me an answer. Because I'm mad. I'm angry. So it's gonna lead to those kind of weird instances. But look, I mean, it was a tough night. I just want to finish the topic with this, Elias. Do you think there are any bright spots to this? Like, I mean, keep it short, man. Honestly, like
to the game or the season. I'm dead serious. Because to the game, no, obviously not.
No, the game, forget about it. We forgot, right? That never happened.
To the season, and I was talking about this with some of the reporters after the game when everyone had left. This game notwithstanding, Montreal went from the second worst defense in the league in MLS last year, by far, by a factor of like a million. They were, besides San Jose Earthquakes, they were by far the worst defensive team in the league, to a bang average one. Right now, with 6 goals added to their goal total, they're averaging almost 2 goals against per game. It's back in the bottom tier of MLS. But before yesterday, they were a bang average defensive team. That is a significant improvement. That's not just, oh, yeah, you worked on it. No, that's significant improvement. You went from horrible, objectively horrible, to okay. That, I take my hat off.
Yeah, okay.
George Campbell,
you're right.
Luca Petrasso, Joel Waterman, David Bugay, all the players, right? that were involved in that defensive work, very good job. This game now does is it completely skews that narrative because now they've conceded 23 goals in 13 games. That's terrible. For that, it's not as bad. 17 goals in 12 games is not it's not great, but it's very much middle of the road MLS. So up
Yeah.
until then, my hat's off to the defensive work.
I agree, and that's definitely something we remarked in the Crew game. We saw this team be very defensive, very defensive with the Crew and frustrate them and all that. And it's definitely something that's very visible to the naked eye when you start seeing how this team is defending. So yeah, some bright spots. Like I said, you guys should focus more on on the development part. I'm not gonna say the positive, the development part of the players and the team, instead of maybe look at the W's, because if not, you're again for your mental health, right? So we're gonna move on to our next topic, Roses FC.
Yes.
But before we do it, a quick
More
reminder
fun.
to click on the subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from, be it on X, Blue Sky, Facebook, wherever you're at, where the ball is round is there. Make sure to also follow Elias and Andy, myself, on X or Blue Sky, anywhere. You can follow Elias at the Grigoriadis on X, and you can follow me at Andy's Take 88 on X. And guys, just hop on the show, follow us, and make sure to sign up to our Patreon, because we give daily updates. We post up reels, translate them for you, for everybody to understand. So make sure to support us and support the pod, support us, and yeah, keep the show growing. All right, we're gonna move on. Elias, I was crossing my fingers, hoping, like, come on,
Give me
Roses
something good.
FC, please
Anything.
give me something good. Please give us
Yeah.
something good. And I'm watching the game, and it is not looking good. It is not looking good. Roses FC was playing against Calgary Wild FC. They just finished over an hour ago, and I'm like, okay, 0-0. We already said last week, Elias, that Roses FC game felt like it felt like a loss, even though it was a tie at home. That's what I was feeling today. I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna feel a little bit like a loss because they are not playing well. Roses FC is not playing well right now. And then they scored on the 85th. Calgary scores in the 85th, and I'm like, oh no. Why not this weekend? And yeah, so there you have it. Spoiler alert: Calgary Roses FC suffered their first loss of the season against Calgary Wild FC, 1-0 at Calgary. Yeah, tough game to watch. I'm sorry. What were if you could pull up the lineup there, Elias, of Rose FC? We had on goalie Karpenko. We have Whitaker, Elias, and Capadona as center backs, and left back Schenk. Abdul on as right middle, Bibo and Hess as central midfielders. Megan Sauvé on the left middle, and Paquin and Boychuk up front. Yeah, a few switches here and there from what we saw last week, a little bit of rotation. What were your thoughts?
This team is very slowly starting to become figured out.
Yeah,
right?
We said that last week.
They play with so much intensity. They bring so much energy. They bring their press. They bring all that work rate. All you have to do is kind of just outlast that. You just have to kind of. You can't run with them. The second you start running with them, they'll kill you because they cannot be outrun. But all you have to do is keep your shape, stay organized, don't give anything down the middle, and you're kind of going to be okay. And that's what we saw last week. That's what we saw this week against Calgary again. Both sides was very slow game. It was very dry, and that's exactly what Calgary wanted. They kind of slowed the game down. They made it a pain to watch. They made it even bigger pain to play. And again, you want to play in a 4-4-2 because you want to have this run and gun kind of offense. You need somebody in that front four with the finesse to unlock defenses. And Latifa Abdu does have that quality when she can, but she can't be the only one. Because then it feels like she's surrounded by Paquin, Boychuk, and Sauvé, and it's just vertical speed, getting forward, being aggressive, and kind of getting into good spots. And that's not going to, teams are not going to let you do that now. All right. You don't have an offensive midfielder. You don't have a creative force further up the pitch. And again, this, It's starting to feel kind of repetitive because this was my big problem with them last week. Was you have, you know, Hess and Bilbao in the midfield together. That is an excellent midfield duo. But if you ask them to do the work of also creating going forward, you're going to make some concessions. And when you play in a midfield two like that and they're alone to patrol the field, that's how that goal happens. It's a cross into the middle where the midfield got caught out. And again, fair play. Beautiful shot. And Karpenko had no chance. That was, first time, top bins off the post in. Excellent shot, beautifully worked goal for a game that was kind of not sloppy, but just very much bogged down in physicality and not that much technical quality was able to shine through. A very rare bit of technical quality did, and that ended up winning Calgary the game. But if you want them to play this way, you're going to become very one dimensional, and that's what they're becoming. So this is now Robert Rosatoyo's big challenge is creating more variety with this attack, because until now they've played 5 games and I've only seen them attack one way. So if you have a team that's organized for that and you can mitigate that, you have nothing. And the last 2 games, there's a reason that they scored 6 goals in 3 games and then 0 in the last 2. It's because teams are trying to figure it out. So now you have to do your job and be a coach and throw in something. Throw in a change up and maybe change formations, maybe change your starting 11, change something, because you cannot go into a third game like this expecting it to be different, because they're going to play the exact same way.
Yeah, and this is something we mentioned, in other shows where we said this team. One of the things that we liked a lot about Rose FC was that they came out swinging, and it just felt like teams were always chasing after Rose FC. They seem to be in so much better shape. But Elias, we had mentioned it. We did say we were like
Mm.
we have to. They have to be careful because these teams are going to start catching up. I mean, they're obviously at a whole different level physically right now than the other teams, but it happens. It happens with every team, and in MLS and any league, it happens that teams need a little bit of time to get. Now the question is, how do you adapt? And that's something that it seems like teams caught up, and now Rose FC, like you said, is looking very one dimensional. The only point that I could truly say I saw a little bit of Roses FC, the older Roses FC that we saw at the beginning of the season, where they were aggressive and they were really, trying like to score and clearly were connecting really well. The only time I really can say I saw that was after Calgary scored their goal.
Yeah, the
After
last five
Calgary scored
minutes
their
were the
goal,
best attacking of the game.
exactly, and Abdul was again taking shots, and but at that point you had already taken Boychuk out, which is not a bad thing, but she clearly is very skilled, and especially and when Rose FC is playing like that, I was very disappointed with the way Smith played, because I really have liked her play a lot this season in the past 3 games. I think she's been running up the field, really dominating that side. Granted, I think she got injured last game. She limped off a bit of the field, but she came in late into the game, and I was like, okay, now there's a difference maker, because it was Shank that started,
Yeah.
and it just really felt like no. She gave again. The goal wasn't. I think she gave it up. She gave up a possession. It wasn't a mistake. It was just
I was on her
that
side.
that Rose's defense is, and we've seen this in the past few weeks, is struggling the moment they feel some kind of pressure. The moment they feel some kind of pressure, they are struggling to really, control the ball, and it's hard, because the way Coach Robert, likes to make this team play is to play up high, right, and be
Mhm.
aggressive and all that, be offensive, but you expose yourself so much in the back, and this team is struggling with that. So yeah. So I felt like they were, like you said, one dimensional, kind of flat in the way they played, and just woke up in the last 5 minutes, but it was too little, too late, and this is the first loss of the season. It's hard, but they need to find a way to change things up, because teams caught up. It is clear, Elias, it is clear
Yeah.
that these players have like the way Calgary played them was, let's just kind of isolate all the players, all the offensive players. Let's isolate them, and I think they should be okay. And we saw that a lot of them were isolated. The ball went out, or they lost possession. They're a team that needs to play tight in order to succeed, and it just wasn't their game. I just Very disappointing loss in any case. Um, was there anybody that stood out to you? What were your thoughts on the midfield? of the Rose FC game.
I can't hate on Elias and Charlotte Bull, man. They're so damn good. But again, there's only so much they can do, right? They've been controlling games for the most part, but they cannot be everywhere at once. They cannot be all powerful and do everything. It's just physically they're human. They have physical limitations. You cannot ask them to help provide cover for the attack and provide the final ball and help translate or help convert on on a counterattack, and then also fill up in the defensive duties. Not reliably for 90 minutes, because again, as physically superior that they are, they're still human. And again, that field again may have been the camera, but that looked like a huge pitch, right?
Yeah.
It looked like a lot of ground to cover. And again, it probably was just the angle that looked funny, but there was a lot of space in the middle. There was so much space in the middle. And at some points, it felt like they were overwhelmed. At some points, it felt like they did not have as much control over the midfield as they had in other games.
Well, because they got
So I
isolated. They got isolated.
But
You know.
even when they had the ball, when they were in and out of possession, it felt like they were always chasing the game and they were never really uh getting a leg up. So until Calgary kind of scored and kind of stepped off the gas and retreated into their shell because they didn't want to get countered and conceded an equalizer, they were second to 50-50s. They were not winning every single battle. They were, distribution wise, they're still very good. They're two of the best on ball midfielders in the league. But that only does so much when you are essentially figured out offensively. So, yeah, I don't love the 4-4-2. I understand it has advantages, especially if the game is super open, but the game was not open. So if I'm Robert Rosatoy, I have to kind of understand that not every game is just going to be a gunslinger shootout, right? Like the game against Ottawa or the game against Vancouver, where the game is just open and both teams are just running at each other. Yeah, if that's the case, put your 4-4-2 and let it ride, because no team can run with you. But when other teams stop running and start waiting for you, then you have to kind of understand how to play inside half spaces, and you have to understand how to play in very tight what 2v1s or 3v2s, and how to create those isolations yourself, and they can't do that. So you need a different kind of profile in the field, and we talked about it last week. If you're going to bring Charlotte Bilbao further up the field, you need someone to play next to Elias. If you're going to keep Charlotte Bilbao back there, which I think is the best thing to do, because he's the metronome, you need another creative force further up the field. And Paquin, Sauvé, Abdou, and Boychuk are all technically good, but they're not creative enough in terms of just being able to deliver the ball. Abdou can take on anybody one-on-one, right? So can Boychuk. But that's, taking people on dribbling is one thing. It's about being able to deliver a final ball and being able to take the offensive workload off of your double pivot. There's nobody on that starting 11 right now that can do that. So until then, next week is going to be the same thing.
You're right, and that's I think you hit in the nail, man, because I think Megan Sauvé, Thibault, and even Boychuk and Abdou, they're excellent forwards. They can score goals, but they need somebody to serve the ball because they won't do it. And that's kind of what they seem to be getting forced now when they're isolated, or when they're, when the other team is dictating the game, they can't get into rhythm. They seem to be struggling to do anything else besides scoring, because Abdou can score some bangers, and Boychuk as well. She can score easily. But it's going to be important for Rose FC to find somebody, another player, or maybe develop a player, try something new in midfield, because it's going to get the season is going to get very long if it continues being the same way as we saw today. So I'm definitely excited to continue seeing them develop and seeing what how they can shape differently, so that they can continue going back to the win streak where they were at and how they started. Because Elias, I think we've all seen it this in several different sports, teams that can start really strong. We saw with Laurent Courtois last year, where He started the season very strong because no coach knew what to expect of him, what the way he would play. They started super strong, and then once teams caught up and a bunch of shit was going on outside the club, obviously everything went badly, right? So they need to. I think the next step for them is to really come up with new ideas. Hopefully, bring in a different kind of approach to their game, so that other teams can again they can catch teams out off guard, right? Because they do have talented players, but they just need that missing piece, as you said, Elias, to connect it all, to make sure that they can go ahead and get back on the ball. I think that concludes it for Roses FC. Um, as you know, Elias, it's a quick turnaround for CF Montreal as they face Forge FC on Tuesday
Mm-hmm.
night at Hamilton for the first leg for the Canadian Championship as they continue their journey in the Canadian Championship. Guys, as you know, every week we have our op watch with the opponents that we're watching. That we're playing. This week we have an op watch episode coming out after this show with Thomas Hewitt, who covers the CPL. I'm sure you guys can learn a lot from him as he gives us a preview of Forge FC. It will be available on Patreon right after the show and on YouTube tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe to both. In any case, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. Follow my account as well as Elias's account on X, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, as I said earlier. Support the show, follow us, and for daily updates, daily stories that we have here for you. And big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week and who have been following us on other social media platforms. We see you, and we're happy that you guys trust us in that sense. And thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 227 of The Ball Is Round.